The 21st century is a time of democracies and dictatorships, presidents and prime ministers, military juntas, parliaments, and congresses. When speaking of government, most of us no longer think of kings and queens, and with few exceptions, the majority of kings and queens left in the world have very little power anymore. This was not always the case, of course. It was not so long ago that monarchy was the norm rather than the exception. And even now, our fantasy books and movies are populated with interesting and colorful games of thrones. There is something about a crown that fascinates us. From Queen Elizabeth back to King Arthur, crowned heads remain firmly ensconced in the popular imagination. One of the nations that still has a king as head of state is the beautiful northern country of Sweden. King Carl Gustaf can look back on a long line of royal ancestors, but one of the most famous rulers of his country was not a king, but a queen, an amazing and controversial woman by the name of Christina. Queen Christina ascended the throne of Sweden in 1632, just before her 6th birthday. In the 22 years of her reign, she was considered a rebel, following her own mind and her own conscience rather than the restrictive norms of the day. It was unthinkable for a woman to think for herself or to pursue intellectual interests, but she dared to do just that and became a scandal to the world. She was not crowned as queen, but as king, and was widely known as the Girl King. Christina loved to invite the most learned scholars of the world to her country and her court, so that she could learn from them and discuss the widest variety of subjects with them. That was bad enough in the minds of the conservative society in which she lived. She further scandalized them by taking an interest in music, theater, opera, ballet, and horseback riding, and she took to wearing men's clothes to ride. Shocking! But she really went too far when she began to meet with Jesuit priests and philosophers to learn about the Catholic faith. This was very dangerous territory indeed, for Sweden was an officially Protestant country, and as in most Protestant countries of those times, being Catholic was a crime punishable by death. Now don't put all the blame on the Protestants, though. The Catholics often did the same to them in the countries they controlled. See how they love one another? Christina proceeded cautiously. After all, she was queen of a Protestant country, daughter of a great Protestant hero in the 30 Years' War between the churches. If people knew of her romance with the Catholic religion, her country would be plunged into civil war, and she herself could very well face execution. More and more, however, she found in Catholicism a faith that satisfied both her heart and her intellect. Both reason and conscience led her to the firm conviction that despite everything she had been taught, the Catholic faith provided the only spiritual home in which she felt at home. But as Queen of Sweden, conversion was not an option. Christina pondered the situation carefully. She had everything to lose and nothing to gain if she followed her conscience, if she followed her mind, if she followed her heart. Finally, on June 5th, 1654, In a move that shocked her nation and the world, Queen Christina laid down her crown and abdicated the throne of Sweden. Leaving her beloved country, she was received into the church in Innsbruck. She settled in Rome, and when she died, was buried with the popes in the crypt of St. Peter's Basilica, a queen without a throne, a king among kings. Are you a king? Are you a queen? The haunting question of Pilate has echoed through the ages in heads crowned and uncrowned. What makes a person a king? Is it the throne on which she sits? Is it the crown which sits on her? Or is it the integrity of conscience which trumps every other throne, every other crown, every other law? Never was the queen more a queen. Never did she lead more powerfully than on that day when, guided by conscience, she found the courage to lay down her crown and follow where she was being led. We do not all begin from the same place, nor are we all led down the same path. The crowns we take up and the crowns we lay down are of many sizes and shapes. Our kingdom is not of this world. For this were we born. For this did we come into the world, to discover that the answer to Pilate's question is, yes, I am a king, if I testify to the truth. I am a king if I am true to myself. I am a king if I listen to that voice I know to be true. And the crown of truth will claim me as its own in the eternal kingdom of God.